Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Drawing Down the Stars. I'm Snappy, and thank you for joining me for our live tarot session today, November 26th, 2024. It's a beautiful day. It's a wonderful evening. Let's give a shout out to the chat. Good to see you, Beatnik. Valerie, much love. Gandhi, good to see you. Gomi Kozu, much love. Christy, good to see you. Cynthia, much love. Sixtus, much love. D-Love, great to see you. Holler Haint, much love. Geronimo, great to see you. Isaac, much love. Thank you guys for joining me. It's wonderful to see you all. So let's begin by talking a bit about our astrology. Good to see you, Pamela and Lilith. So today we are still in that moon in Libra, that beautiful energy of Libra, which is that profound justice, that seeking of balance, that moving in flow with the universe. Recognize that now is a time when you're going to feel that call to socialize, to be out in the world, to connect with others, to be in that flow. And also understand that this is going to be a time of some difficulty wrestling with our emotions, learning to balance and truly see what we want, With that justice, with that balance, Libra sometimes struggles to be sure of herself, to balance things fully, especially under the Sagittarius sun, which is going to be this egoic energy, this outgoing energy, this energy of movement. Together, you're going to get such a profound energy of wanting to move, wanting to do something, wanting to be in that flow, but still with this loving connection. So balance out that energy and try to listen to your emotions fully and be in that reasoned approach of balancing things. And this Libra energy will be beautiful. It'll connect you to others. It'll bring such profound joy. Just be in that flow and go forward. All right. Amazing. Let's talk now about the title. Opposites must come together to create something new. When I was meditating, I drew the Lovers card, which is just wild to me because 2 days in a row, the Lovers was the center, and now it is the signifier. Such incredible, profound energy of love has been filling the tarot lately. And as we know, the Lovers is that incredible energy of the alchemical wedding. It's that coming together of opposites to create something. It is about seeing yourself reflected in the other, engaging in that other to know the self and to know them. The one and the many, the loving action of connecting to another allows us to transcend all forms, to expand our perspective, and to embrace reality through that experience and that understanding of that other. And when we can truly move and flow with that love, we can create something greater than each other, something greater than both of us, something that is us combined. And that is the power of that love to recontextualize, reassemble, and to create something new. Right? And we have to understand that it is the opposites that come together. There's always going to be a bit of a struggle, but it is the struggle that is important. And it is that love that allows us to overcome that struggle, to come together into that loving co-creation, into that manifestation, into something truly beautiful, right? Profound energy. Love to see it. All right. We're now going to go to our Ganesha Ganapati Oracle. Ganapati is the divine child, the Lord of beginnings, the guardian of the threshold, and the master of spirits. And we ask them to send us an inspiring message and ensure our words are heard by those who need to hear them. We had a couple cards shoot out at us, so we're going to go with these. And the first card is belonging. Beautiful energy. Incredible energy. I love to see this. Belonging, especially with that moon in Libra, because that is that energy of wanting to get out and socialize and connect, of wanting to feel a part, of being in flow, of having that community of friends and partners and people you can trust, people you can rely upon, and in that reciprocity, in that loving flow, right? And this is telling us to seek out that belonging, to seek out our place and to make ourselves useful. To truly belong is to be active and to be participating within community, to be working and building with others. Belonging is another form of love. It is love manifested across many people. It's beautiful. Love to see it. And then we have capacity to love. Amazing. Wow, double love energy now from Ganapati. And that capacity to love is about being open to receiving, being open to understanding people. We need to truly be able to forgive and love ourselves, to be able to connect to ourselves. And only then can we truly connect to the others, right? And we have to be able to flow and expand the capacity to give people grace, to be in that open flow, and to be willing to receive and to accept. This requires such responsibility. It requires such ability to let another in, to make yourself vulnerable. And it's a beautiful, profound thing when you can do that. And this is calling us to embrace that capacity, to be in that open reception, to let other people in and to accept them for who they are. Love is dangerous because love connects us to people. It ties us to people, and people are human and complicated, But what we're seeing is that belonging and that capacity in this instance is what we are called for. This is beautiful. This is profound. Let's see where this is going to continue. We're now going to jump to our sortes. For those of you unaware, the sortes is a form of bibliomancy, that is divination through literature. And it comes to us from the Greco-Roman tradition, and we invoke the goddesses of inspiration, the divine muses, and we ask them to send us a message through the text. And today we're going to begin with Don Juan in Hell by Bernard Shaw. So muses, what is the inspiring message from Shaw? It is a dig at a much higher power than you, Commander. Still, you must have noticed in your profession that even a stupid general can win battles when the enemy's general is a little stupider. It's so funny, right? We often see these things like command and power is equating to intelligence, of equating to ability, and that is not necessarily the case. Often it's not the case. People who wield power are those who happened to wield power, right? But the reason why we're seeing in this case with the general is that the general doesn't need to be smart. He just needs to be smarter than the person he's up against. Intelligence is overweighted in many ways, right? It's wildness and it's ridiculous. But this is the world that we live in. Fundamentally, human beings, we are animals, right? We are animals capable of the most ridiculous and most extreme things, There are moments of great beauty and organization, but at the end of the day, we are still animals. And what has happened before can happen again because we're still the same human beings that have always been. Let's continue. All right. Lewis Carroll, Alice Adventures in Wonderland. Muses, what is the message from Carroll? Inspire us this evening. There was a book lying near Alice on the table, and while she sat watching the White King, for she was still a little anxious about him, and had the ink all ready to throw over him in case he fainted again, she turned over the leaves to find some part that she could read. For it's all in some language I don't know, she said to herself. Oh, wow. It's all in a language I don't know. And I'm struggling with the book to go through the leaves. This makes me think so much of the Sibyls and so much of prophecy. When you look at this Greco-Roman magical tradition, there's something about confronting the other, confronting the barbarous words, engaging with the foreign, that which is different. For the Greeks, this was the Egyptian. They often engaged with the Egyptian myth, but through this protracted lens and created this cultural difference. But this allowed for such incredible poetic beauty to unfold. It is in that engagement, in that realm of othering, that the magic comes. It's when we shine a light, when we expose ourselves to the unknown, to that imagination. Often when people are confronted with that which they don't understand, they confuse it, they twist it, it becomes this imagined other. Another example of this we see with the Amazons. The Greeks saw these Amazons as these monstrous, ferocious beings, these things that were terrifying, these women who were capable of the most abject violence. But then at the same time, we see them founding Delphi. We see Artemis herself, that perfected Amazon of the highest ideal. So on one hand, they worshiped this, and there was power in it, even though it brought them fear and confusion. And it is when we go into those weird places, when we read those books we don't understand, when we force ourselves to try to engage, to see the patterns, that we learn something. It is through that struggle that magic can come out. Interesting. All right, let's continue. We're now going to go to Magia by Alan Chapman. Muses, what is the message from Alan Chapman? To not play this role means letting go of everything you know and having faith in the teaching, nothing else. To play this role means letting go of everything you think you know and having faith in the teaching, nothing else. This is something that so many of us struggle with, and for good reason. When we see these classical forms of spiritual understanding, it's often through these guru lineages that require one to engage that teacher as a student, but not just simply engage. It's that understanding that in order to gain what the teacher has to offer, we have to submit to their authority, and we have to go through the process that they have outlined for us. And then at the end, we will experience something similar to what they have experienced. At least that is the assumption, right? But this requires one to, first of all, sacrifice the self, give up their own preconceived notions, and submit to the authority of another. This is not only difficult, but dangerous, right? Incredibly dangerous. And while you see this at the heart of the path, I think it's far better, instead of engaging in that way with a guru, to do this with the personal muse, right? To be in that connection where that you're learning and listening and being open, right? Learning and listening and being open and trusting in the fate of the universe, trusting in that flow, being in that Taoist mode of moving and flowing. But you don't necessarily need to submit to a man or woman or whoever, right? These things get a little wild. And if you do see a teacher that could potentially be that person who can provide you, just understand you are submitting to an authority in order to have a mitigated form of experience, one that they are explained and are deciding and are going to show you. And even then, can you truly have the same experience as another? Right? There's so much to this kind of stuff, to submitting to those kind of images. People, they get too caught up in the idea of what this could represent about that wisdom that can be gained, and do not see the cost along the path and the expectation. This is a deep thing. Some people will walk these paths and be beautifully transformed. They will find that teacher that is meant for them, and they will grow to ascended heights. Others will find a false teacher and will utterly destroy themselves, or at least have to learn from experience, and others still will find that this was not for them, that they were unable to submit. And what that truly entailed, that they needed to do this on their own. The key is always to know thyself and to know the body and to act within reason. You know, one of the axioms that you see at the Temple of Delphi is not to make bonds, it's not to swear oaths, because these bind you to the earth. These bind you to time and place, and to an idea when the universe itself is forever in cyclical change. And to bind yourself to something is to limit your perspective and understanding and to tie you to something. What happens if things change, right? Lots to think on with these kinds of scenarios. Let's continue. All right. We're now going to go to 10 Plays by Euripides. Muses, what is the message from Euripides? Inspire us this evening. Grant me this exception. If anything happens to the boat, if the letter is lost in the sea along with my belongings and I save only my person, let the oath no longer be binding. What was I just talking about? How these oaths can bind you to these tasks that are unsurmountable. What we see here is we see a man pleading that their oath can be changed because they see that they can fail. And what happens when they fail? They're still bound to that oath. They're still bound to that chain. They have imprisoned themselves and they must go through this pact, even if it requires their death. Right? We're talking about these metaphysical binds, these binds that exist across lifetimes, you know? And usually we don't consider the exceptions. How many of you are lawyers, right? One of the interesting things that we often see in the magical tradition that people forget is that magic is all in the spelling. It's in the grammar. It's in what you ask for. Be careful what you wish for. You're engaging with that Lucifer energy, and they want to give you what you want. Are you sure you want what you want? Do you see the consequences of your action? Let's continue. Marlowe, Dr. Faustus. Muses, what is the message from Marlowe? Inspire us. When I behold the heavens, then I repent and curse thee, wicked Mephistopheles, because thou hast deprived me of these joys. Why, Faustus, thinkest thou heaven is such a glorious thing? I tell thee, 'tis not half so fair as thou or any man that breathes on earth. There's so much to unpack here. First of all, Faust is decrying the demon Mephistopheles and is blaming him for his own life on the earth in the underworld in hell. But Faust is responsible. Faust is responsible for himself. Faust brought himself to this place. But he doesn't even see things clearly. And Mephistopheles calls him on this. Thinkest thou heaven is such a glorious thing? I tell thee, 'tis not half so fair as thou or any man that breathes on earth. Heaven isn't as beautiful as any man that even breathes on earth. You know, I often think of the Golden Ass. And there's a part in the Golden Ass where they tell the story of Cupid and Psyche. And Psyche gets to transcend to the highest crystal palace of Eros, right? She gets to live in the greatest of wealth and luxury, in the most beautiful place imaginable. But she is alone. She is alone. She cannot even see her lover Eros. That is denied her. She is attended upon by the winds. So even though she has all this beauty, all this luxury, all this variety of foods and drugs and everything you could imagine that she could want, except for company, except for struggle, except for change, right? and the human goes mad. And what does Psyche do? She reaches out to her sisters, even though she knows and is consistently warned that they will be harsh judges, that they will come and hurt her. It matters not, for Psyche is human, and to be human is to be in community. And that is what we're seeing even here, right? That heaven, though it is beautiful, though it is abundant, it is without physicality, it is without change. It is without that struggle and that evolution. It's without true love. Let's continue. All right. We are now going to go to Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained by Milton. Muses, what is the message from Milton? Inspire us. Their corners when with bluster to confound sea, air, and shore, the thunder when to roll with terror through the dark aerial hall. Some say he bids his angels turn askance, the poles of earth twice 10 degrees and more from the sun's axle. They with labor pushed oblique the centric globe. Wow. Some say he bid his angels to turn askance the poles of earth twice 10 degrees and more from the sun's axle. They with labor pushed oblique the centric globe. This is such an important image within that Greco-Roman tradition, the flipping of the poles, the changing of the order, Apollo to Dionysus, Apollo to Artemis, right? Wildness on full display here. Turn the poles of earth twice. From the sun's axle, they with labor pushed oblique the centric globe. Wow. Let's continue. All right. We're now going to go to A Sinister Assassin, Antonin Artaud. Muses, what is the message from Artaud? Inspire us. But once that cooking up was all done, all that remained for my body was to harden up, to plug up my accomplished effort. But that's what I haven't had the time to be able to do. But once that cooking up was all done, all that remained for my body was to harden up, to plug up my accomplished efforts. That's what I haven't had the time to be able to do. And I believe what the great Artaud is referring to here is that connecting with the body. It's being in the self, right? You go through this experience of the cooking, right? This is, again, mystery language, allegorical language, because the cooking and the consumption of the sacrificial feast, the wine and the food and the cake is so essential to the Dionysian rites, right? And often this would be seen as the body itself, right? You are consuming the flesh, right? So what we're engaging here is that going through the process of self-refinement, of nourishing and refining oneself, cooking the body, putting yourself in that coffin, right? To withstand the flames of torment, to survive across death, right? The coffin itself is a cooking tool. This was a thing that was used in the past, right? And what we're seeing here, Artaud is telling us that once the cooking was all done, all that remained was for my body to harden up, for my body to internalize fully the experiences that have gone through it. But this requires one to sit and be in the body, to be engaged with the self, to be in that silence. And I'm not talking meditation. Meditation is beautiful, but meditation is a prescription. It is a specific practice to result in ego death. No, I'm talking about just sitting in the body and doing nothing, just in the silence of self. Being in that place when you are truly just in the moment. That's when you can harden up. That's when you can truly connect to the self. You know, we often overthink these things. You know, meditation serves a purpose, but even it is an action. Even it is a praxis. It is something to overcome the ego. We want to simply be in flow, to simply be. And trust me, if you're anxious or you're stressed, you won't be able to sit for very long. This is one of the most difficult things that we can do. To sit in some ways is to die. But in many ways, achieving enlightenment is that facing of death. You have to be like Odysseus and gaze into the abyss. And the abyss is that silence and that stillness. All right. Let us continue. We're now going to go to Byron, selected poetry and letters. Muses, what is the message from Lord Byron? Inspire us this evening. On the 6th day, they fed upon his hide, and Juan, who still refused because the creature was his father's dog that died, now feeling all the vulture in his jaws, with some remorse received, though first denied, as a great favor one of the 4 paws, which he divided with Pedrillo, who devoured it, longing for the other 2. Whoa! We are seeing what the effects of nature in the world has upon us. We all need to consume. To live is to be in that motion, and to be a hunger, right? Is to be feasting, to be transmuting, to be going through the cycle. What we're seeing here is Don Juan on a boat, starving, without food. And the people on the boat decide to kill the dog in desperation. The dog that was his father's. And at first, his strength of character weighs out. I can't eat the dog. That was my companion. That was my father's companion. This is a beautiful, loving creature. But time and pain caused even Juan to consume this dog, to eat of the forepaw, even though at first he denied it. And eventually they longed for that taste. Pain and suffering and circumstance will turn us all into animals again, right? And we need to be able to connect and understand and see that animalistic side, that desire side, and recognize that we have to keep that serpentine essence in control, right? That's what it is to become a responsible adult. Wow. All breaks down in the face of trial and tribulation, though. And this is also reality, Our polite society is only polite as long as people are well fed and sheltered. All right. L'Autrement, Malador, and other poems. Muses, what is the message from L'Autrement? Well, listen. If the confession of a man who recalls having lived for half a century as a shark in the undersea currents along the coast of Africa interests you deeply enough to pay attention to him, if not with bitterness, at least without irreparable fault of showing the revulsion you feel for me. Wow. Listen to the confession of a man who recalls having lived for half a century as a shark in the undersea currents along the coast of Africa. A shark in the current. Apex predator, the absolute carnivore of the ocean, right? Wow. Pay attention to him, if not with bitterness, at least without the irreparable fault of showing the revulsion you feel with me. You know what I'm seeing here is that we need to be able to overcome the revulsion. There's so much to be said about not engaging and denying yourself perspective. It is only when we face the problems that we have, it's only when we engage with other people, when we try to see from as much perspective as possible, that we can truly understand, that we can face reality as it is. When we take our head in the sand and we deny ourselves those extreme circumstances because they are violent, then we do not see what they truly are. The shark is a perfect example. In our modern sensibility, because of horror movies, the shark is this absolute monster, right? That hunts and kills people. We've all heard the myth of the great white shark, and it's just that, myth and nonsense, right? There are examples, of course, of people getting injured, but these are few and far between, and normally by people who are foolish. And then these myths, though, they take on a life on their own, and people are reviled. They see that shark as something radically different and radically more violent. You know? And when we do too, when we engage in that hatred, we dismiss and we ignore, and you lose stuff, right? We start to lose species. We let things die, and then the ecosystem falls out of balance and things get crazy. Everything is far more nuanced than we like to admit and we like to think. It's not that sharks are not dangerous, but it is that they are not cartoon monsters. They're animals that can be understood and can be respected. Let's continue. Lorca, 3 tragedies. Muses, what is the message from Lorca? Inspire us. Elegant girl, most elegant in the world. See the way the water is flowing, for your wedding night comes. Hold your skirt close in under the bridegroom's wing, and never leave your house. For the bridegroom is a dove, with his breast a firebrand, and the fields wait for the whisper of spurting blood. A turning the wheel was a turning, and the water was flowing, and your wedding night comes. O water, sparkle. Beautiful. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. We're seeing that divine marriage. And we see this image in so many different myths, right? The one that immediately comes to mind is the abduction of the Kori, or the marriage of Parvati and Shiva. Elegant girl, most elegant in the world, see the way the water is flowing, for your wedding night come. This is fated. Your wedding night, when you will be taken somewhere else. Hold your skirts close and under the bridegroom's wing, and never leave your house, for the bridegroom is a dove, with his breast a firebrand. And the fields wait for the whisper of spurting blood. Is that bridegroom really that safe? Wow, never leave your house. Is a dove with his breast a firebrand, and the fields wait for the whisper of spurting blood. The fields wait for that change. They wait for that violence to come, because he is a tyrant. A turning of the wheel was a turning, and the water was flowing. Your wedding night comes, oh water sparkle. The turning and the turning, right? And all of us will die. Yeah. Breast of firebrand, with his breast of firebrand. And the fields wait for the whisper of spurting blood. Interesting. Wow. The Telltale Heart in Other Writings by Edgar Allan Poe. Muses, what is the message from Poe? Inspire us. It is with extreme reluctance that I dwell upon the appalling scene which ensued, a scene which, with its minutest details, no after events have been able to efface in the slightest degree from my memory, and whose stern recollection will embitter every future moment of my existence. Wow. This is a really intense image, because we often speak of the memory and remembrance and how important that is to the Orphic tradition. But it's also that remembrance brings with it that sorrow, that pain of loss and transformation, of dealing with the nature of our cyclical transforming world, right? To be able to deal with that change is to have to learn to face the sorrow and the horror and the pain. It is with extreme reluctance that I dwell upon the appalling scene which ensued, a scene which, with its minutest details, no after events have been able to efface in the slightest degree from my memory. This image was so horrific, it's burned into his brain. Burned into his brain. Wow. And whose stern recollection will embitter every future moment of my existence. You often hear tales about this where people will have a traumatic experience and then that experience will haunt them. It will haunt them. It will color their memory. And sometimes it even is down to the body itself. The body will react and not even the mind. You hear this in a lot of victims of extreme abuse. You know, their abuser smokes cigars, and so now they smell that cigar and they're immediately back in that room. You know, or the soldier who hears an explosion of a firework and is immediately back on that battle scene. Wow. Let's continue. We're going to do one final sorties, and then we're going to hop to our tarot proper. We're going to go to Women Who Run with Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Muses, guide my hand. What is the message from Christina Pinkola Estes? Inspire us. Holy figures throughout the ages assure and reassure us that on the transformative open road, there is already a place set for us. And to this place, by scent, by intuition, we are dragged or spirited by destiny. We all arrive in the king's orchard eventually. It is only right and proper. We all go through the cycles of transformation, and we will all eventually make it to that moment when we were face to face with that king in that orchard, right? But we have to go through these experiences. We have to trial and error. We have to follow and trust. And it is only when we can take responsibility for the self and when we can truly move and flow that we will be able to get through and enter into these places. You know, there is a place set for you. There is a true will. There is a path. You just have to listen and walk it for yourself. Beautiful. All right. We are now going to go to our tarot proper. But before I do, please give me a like and a subscribe. It really does make a big difference. And if you're at all interested in a private reading, you can reach out to me, Snappy, ddts@gmail.com. All right. And today we're using the Tabula Mundi Tarot of M.M. Moline. And we're going to be invoking the energy of Saturn, asking them to dissect their life, expose it on the plate, and show us the interconnections so we can learn how to rise above the conflicts, how to best move and flow, how to manifest our true will, and what the greater message for the community is. And I had a card shoot out at me. And our center card today, and the most important card, is the Priestess. The Priestess. Wow. Beautiful, incredible energy, the Priestess. The Priestess is the first feminine in the tarot. It is that absolute mother energy. It is the one that goes to the depths of the unconscious and gives birth to new creation, to new forms, to diversity. It is her who goes through these disciplined acts and transformations in order to bring about construction. It's her who weaves the tapestry, who works through her kin across generation. That long unfolding magic, that subtle magic, that magic of the body, of the unconscious, of that feminine spirit, of connecting in flow. And that's the energy that we are meant to embody, that priestess, that lover of the moon, the one who draws down the moon into the earth and gives birth to something new, who constantly dons new masks in infinite form and infinite diversity, who's reborn with the cycles. Where's this energy going? Beautiful. We have that victory in the suit of the wands. when we can connect to that unconscious mind into the body, when we can learn to embody that creative power of the self, and we can connect to people in that intuitive flow, that is when we will manifest the victory, when we will draw down that desire, that fire, right? The Six of Wands is the wands perfectly balanced on that middle path. This is our desire achieved, our goals, our victory, success. And it is achieved through that embodiment, through that engagement. In order to have this desire manifest as that six and that perfected balance, we have to learn to sit with the self and manifest it in flow with the universe, as the priestess does, who can take that dream and embody it physically and give birth to it literally. That's the power that we're drawing upon. Wow. Our old friend, Mr. Prince of Discs, the divided young man, the man with his head in the clouds, right? That heir of the earth, the divided self, that selfish person who, while they do have this great ideal, they can see the beauty on the horizon, they are disconnected from that earth in their way to achieve it. Right? And there's often this harsh judgment, this intensity of person, an inability to connect. They move in conflict. But what we're seeing here is that when we can embody the priestess, right? The priestess is the water. She is the first feminine. She is the moon. She is the cycle. She embraces the flow and transformation. She is nothing but flow. All of her actions happen when they are meant to. You know, she waits for the full moon and for the new moon to act. She waits when the time is correct. She moves not before or later. This is having that discipline of action, of having that connection to time and to place. And what I'm seeing here is that victory, that maturity that we are seeking, that overcoming of the disconnect between mind and body is achieved when we embrace the waters, when we connect to the feminine, when we embody our desires, and we move in flow with the universe. In flow with the universe. Instead of forcing our will as the magician does, our will simply is. And it simply works through us and comes out as that creation, as that product of our being. The priestess inspires. She inspires others to act. She is that kin builder, right? Let's continue. All right. Interesting. The Eight of Swords, interference. We're seeing that at the bottom of our square connected to that priestess. So there is an interfering energy here. There is a disconnect. Again, look, we're seeing this energy of the conscious and the unconscious mind in disconnect. You know, we're seeing this disconnect between what we wish and what our body wishes. You know, often people struggle with this. If we're not fully connected to our body, if we're not moving in flow, eating right, sleeping right, you know, listening to our dreams, then it doesn't matter what our conscious mind wants. The body is going to prevent it, or it's going to throw its wrench into the thing. You have to recognize that we are a multiplicity of forms that are working in conjunction to create something, even within the self. And what we're seeing here is that there's a need to overcome this interference. There's a disconnect from the body and from the unconscious. There's not enough listening. We're not sitting in the body. We're not moving in flow. Instead, we're embodying this solar energy, this lionized energy, right? Which is trying to assert our will and trying to force. That can only go so far. Eventually, the body will rebel unless you get things into harmonized balance. And that requires taking that time. You know, there's nothing wrong with embodying that consciousness, embodying that lion energy, but it must be balanced with that lunar. And what we're seeing here is now is the time to connect to that unconscious self, to learn to move and flow, to embrace that feminine, and to engage in that act of inspiration and kin building, of weaving things together, of taking that slow road, of learning when and how to act in flow as you should. And that'll overcome this disconnect between conscious mind and unconscious mind, right? That'll allow us to move past this interference. Wow. Interesting. Connected to that interference is we have dominion, the Two of Wands, recognizing our extreme power, right? You have the dual wands. You have here we see it depicted. It's interesting. You have the shepherd's staff, the crook, and then you have the whip. Often you'll see this with Apollo. Apollo carries two things with him, the whip of Pytho, and often he carries the reins of the chariot, right? And we're seeing this on display. This is about the power to manifest and to control your life, right? And what we're seeing here is that in this moment, we have exceptional ability. We have that power. We've connected to desire. You have the ability to manifest what you wish for, but you are disconnected. The problem here is one of imagination. It's one of understanding, right? What do you want? What are you fighting for? You got all this power, all this strength. Where is it being directed? Right now, it's going nowhere. There's something that's preventing this from forming a clear image. It's a divided image. We're at war with the self. The unconscious and the conscious want different things. And you cannot, it doesn't matter how much power you have. If you are not centered in the self, then you cannot project that power properly. It becomes emboldened in anxieties. It becomes emboldened and twisted by thoughts, by wandering, right? Interesting. This is about engaging in that process of imagination and going through that disciplined action of overcoming the interference through doing that hard work of connecting to the body, right? Of using this power that we have, of using this desire in our heart and projecting it to the stars. This is that energy of going out under the sky and asking the Great Mother, begging for a change, doing what is necessary to bring about that change, crying out, right? And to do that, you have to be in that embodied self. You have to be connected. You have to embody the highest consciousness and the lowest unconsciousness. Otherwise, what you wish for is going to be all wishy-washy, all confused. You know, it won't flow in proper understanding. Let's see where this is going. Interesting. We now see the three work. The three of discs, that work card, building in the earth, transforming our surroundings, doing what is necessary to manifest. And what we're seeing here is that priestess has to do that hard work, right? So this is about, again, doing that work. You know, even the star represents that work in many ways. It's about taking the time to sit in the silence, taking the time to be in the body, taking the time to listen to the dreams, to write them down, taking the time to go out and to pray to that mother, to pray to the gods, and to ask, to imagine something. What are you asking for? Before you can ask, you have to define what you want. And this is all a magical process, a magical act. And to truly define and to know what you want, you have to be connected, mind, body, and soul. Where's this going? Now that's beautiful. What are we working towards? Right? We're not just working toward, like, part of the way that we overcome this interference, part of the way that we learn to flow is it's not simply just an internalized interference between mind and body, but it is also an externalized interference. Its fundamental core is a personal one, but it also results in us It results in us being unable to handle it when people show up short, when people aren't in understanding with us, when people aren't flowing correctly, you know? And the 99% of people in this universe are going to not flow with you, right? For various reasons, you know? And it is extraordinarily frustrating when we're dealing with that conflicting energy. But we need to recognize our part in this. When you know, like the truth comes when we can learn to balance and understand, when we can give grace to other people, when we can have kindness for other people and for the self. What I'm seeing here at the root of both of this, right, is the truth is that externalized factor. We need to learn to stop fighting with people around us. We need to embrace other perspectives, and we need to let go of pettiness and to rise to that higher minded ideal, right? But what I'm seeing is the core to both of these cards. Both of these air cards show us a conflict, and at the result, both of these conflicts are a result of not loving the self, right? If you truly loved the self and understood the self, then you would have compassion for others. You would see them for where they're at, and you would judge them based on their actions, not based upon their ignorance, right? Words are just words often. And a truly strong person can overcome that and can see the necessity of the truths, can see how beautiful that is, can work with people in spite of the difference, in spite of the ignorance. We're all animals, right? We're all guilty and filthy and awful. If we can't rise to this truth, nothing ever will get done, right? And then here, this disconnect from the body is because there is a refusal to engage with the self in the body. There's a refusal to sit. You also have to have that compassion for yourself. If you cannot have that compassion for yourself, how can you have that compassion for anyone else? Right? And this is at the root of so much of our problems in society. If you cannot love yourself, those who are in constant judgment and are worried about what other people are doing are small-minded and are not in love with themselves. They do not know. They're not in flow. They are bound down in ignorance. And it doesn't matter about what's right or wrong. You define that for yourself, of course. But at the end of the day, we all have to flow. And part of reason is recognizing you cannot make the world like you, and that people are going to do things you don't like. And you have to trust others to live their lives. You have to trust others to live their lives. And it's such a difficult thing, but this is what it is, right? This is what it is to be a responsible human adult. Let's continue. Wow. The Hierophant. Beautiful. That energy of the teacher, that energy of that, you know, the priestess is that natural flow of the universe that gives birth. This is that similar energy, but reflected in a more authoritating, a more direct. It is that Venus upon the earth. It is that Hathor energy. But it is rooted in that power. It's Hera, right? Hera embodied. And so this is all about the celestial order, about establishing something that is true and right, and in using that authority and that power towards your advantage. So what I'm seeing here is that with the work and with the truths, this is about rising to that position, about becoming that Hierophant. And what I mean by this is that it's embodying that Hera energy, being that celestial ruler, the one who can enact justice, who can rise above the petty conflicts, and who can see things as they are, who can move in flow. You know, Hera is that energy. She sustains the throne. She stays upon the throne in spite of the changes of the cycles. You know, that feminine is always there in the background, you know? But she is the power behind Zeus. I always think the first man in the Greek tradition, Pheronius, his first act as king, when he's made the first king, is to establish the temple to Hera. That is his foundation upon the earth. That builds that celestial order, that creates the nuance, you know? Hera is that one who drives Dionysus mad, because Dionysus is that grandiose liberator who always seeks to bring people to absolute freedom. And if Dionysus wasn't mad, he'd just tear everyone's shit down all the time. So that madness, the beautiful madness, right? It's a beautiful madness, and it's about balancing. But Hera is that actor. She ensures that creation unfolds. And we're being called to be that kind of person, to take that kind of role in our own life, to be that authority that can see the high-minded order and to build that foundation, right? The priestess to the Hierophant is a natural evolution. You know, and we get there through that work and through that truce. We get to become that high-minded person who can operate from that authority, who can operate with that celestial authority, you know, who can see the grandiose plan and move beyond the fighting and the bickerness, you know, the bickering. Wow. Beautiful. Okay, I'm now going to flip. And once again, if you're at all interested in a private reading, please reach out to me, Snappy, ddts@gmail.com. I would love to give you a reading. All right, let's take a look here. We'll start with the Six of Wands. So that victory, that Six of Wands, we achieve victory when we do two things. When number one, we move in truce. When we love ourselves and love our enemies. When we can learn to see from other people's perspectives, even if they frustrate us, even if we don't like it, because this is what is necessary. You got to learn and understand and move beyond the pettiness and recognize where we're at in truce. And also, when we can embody our power and our desire, and we can focus that desire, when we can take that fire in our hearts and put it into action, that's when we gain the victory. When we can act in truce, without conflict, without petty fighting with others, instead pursuing that desire, that love that is greater than these conflicts, right? Beautiful. Oh, 1 second here. I accidentally, there we go. Okay. All right. Now we look at our priestess. In order to overcome the mental interference, right? This separation between conscious and unconscious self, this disconnect, we have to embody that priestess energy. We have to be that creatrix, the one that moves in flow, the one that builds through kin, the one that does the hard work, who weaves the tapestry. And we have to do the work necessary. This means doing that embodied meditation, sitting with the self, engaging in the silence, learning to listen, learning to flow. Oops. All right. Sorry, guys. I don't know what the heck happened there. All right. We're going to do one final sortes and then we'll call it an evening. All right. Paradise lost, paradise regained. Muses, what is the final message from Milton? All right. Muses, guide me. Who since the morning hour set out from heaven where God resides, and ere midday arrived, in Eden, distance inexpressible, by numbers that have name. That descent of the star unto earth, right? Time immemorial. It took an infinite number of time for that energy to come here. Time is meaningless in some expanse, you know? Everything is moving forward. Everything is going in flow, in due time. You know, that star will reascend to the earth. Immediately I think of Virgil's Eclogues and one of my favorite lines in all of literature. Astrea will return, that divine virgin, and so will Saturn's reign, the golden age, with her in time. All right, everyone. Peace and love. Thank you for joining me, and I hope I see you again tomorrow for more live tarot and sortes. Until then, take care.